I have never EX'd Phoebe. Alright fellas, we're back at Pokemon Masters. So today we're taking a look here at Phoebe at 6-star EX, 5 out of 5, with her new power boost that was unlocked on Pokemon Masters Day, alongside Bugsy's EX. Yeah, that happened too. So yeah, Phoebe did get a boost, and I've never EX'd her until now, so oops, hi Dusknoir. People, I think, are a little underwhelmed by her boost, but honestly I think it does her enough for what they kind of intended for Phoebe to be in general. The one big problem with Phoebe is that she is a crit and attack buffer in a time where the most free-to-play, the best free-to-play supports are attack and crit buffers. And defense buffers, because she does also have shielded on Diehard Plus as well as Team Toughen Up. So she's really competing with characters like Sonya and Hop and all of that for the crit and attack maxer. The one advantage that she does have is being Phoebe, I guess. Not that I'm really big on Phoebe, but if you're a big Phoebe fan, then that's an advantage for you. But she does also now, of course, gain an ability to buff physical moves next on her trainer move. So she's got herself, where Sonya is able to enhance damage by debuffing defense, Phoebe is able to enhance damage by buffing physical moves next. So there is a pretty unique aspect there for that. And then she also has First Aid 4 now. Her healing and defensive capability in general was definitely a massive problem for her because her only real defensive utility was On the Ropes 3, as well as Team Toughen Up 4. Other than that, Phoebe had really nothing to go for when it came to actually taking attacks. She was just a very offensive support. She had, the defensive stats here, 691 health, 304 defense, 308 special defense, and she had nothing really else to help with that. So she gained Shielded 1 on Diehard Plus to buff defense quicker, and First Aid 4 for just a generic method of healing. I do think that this is probably going to be satisfactory for the most part in things like Stadium, where the battles are not very much longer, and obviously if you want to go more hyper offense, then even then the battles will go pretty short. And she did also gain a Berserk Bunch 2 on her trainer move, so she is able to buff attack by, I think that's +3 in one usage of her trainer move at full health, so she's going to be very effective at buffing attack very, very quickly, which I do want to test out when she has lower health as well. I want to see if she can just max attack in one turn, or, well, I guess it wouldn't be max attack in one turn, right? Raises attack up to 4 stat rank, so yeah, she could actually max attack in one turn under the right conditions, which is funny. And again, Diehard Plus shielded, and then the trainer move team physical boost or whatever, and then First Aid 4. She did also gain +40 health and +20 defense, making her defensive ability quite a bit better, and she is definitely a more physically defensive leaning support. She has no method of buffing special defense still, or buffing her special defense at all from the grid boost, so they definitely wanted to make her more physically oriented, which that's fine, I guess, but it doesn't really help her out that much when you have options like Sonya or Hop. The way that I'm looking at Phoebe now, I could be wrong, I haven't actually really tried her out much in battle yet. I do think that Sonya is still just going to be a better option to go for. The defensive debuffs are going to end up being a lot more consistent than her physical moves next buffs. They're going to end up just helping out with damage more. Sonya's got potions. Attack, she still maintains the attack, crit, and defense buffs that Phoebe has, better defense buffs as well, and also gauge acceleration and team gauge management. That's another problem with Phoebe probably, is that her gauge management is probably not going to be great. She does buff gauge on her trainer move, but that's literally it. She does not have any speed or move gauge acceleration based abilities, so you are going to be probably worrying about that too, because she's not exactly fast either. So with all those problems and caveats noted, I guess, let's go ahead and look at some battles where we can make usage of Phoebe, probably, hopefully, to her best ability. So the first battle here is with the Master Rail and BP Karen. This is going to be a recurring problem in this entire video, but as I said, Phoebe is so goddamn slow. Her gauge management abilities are extremely dated, and it's a glaring problem still, even after her grid expansion and other upgrades, right? So we have to use the Master Rail for gauge buffing, which is fine, right? I mean, he does need speed buffs anyway for his nuke plus ramming speed activation, all that stuff anyway, but if you're going to have to be using another character to be able to manage gauge alongside Phoebe, and it's not going to be a double support setup, then you're really hindering your, I guess, options in terms of what teams you can realistically run Phoebe on, or you can obviously deal with the caveat of having the, inconsistency in the damage that Phoebe can provide, right? So, yeah. Either way, the big setup here is that Phoebe's able to max attack extremely efficiently with the effectiveness of not a lot. I can't think of immediately off the top of my head a lot of characters that can buff attack to the same extreme that Phoebe can. Because if you run like half HP priorities in Stadium, you're going to be getting +5 attack from Phoebe for the most part. +4 occasionally, you know, from the first aid, you know, heal and whatnot. But +5 for the most part, just in one sitting. That's extremely quick. Only really matched by like Tierno with his +4 on his trainer move. And obviously, you know, any striker that can max their attack, you know, as usual, right? It's not like Neo Champion. It's like kind of like Neo Champion Blue, where he can max special attack and his trainer move, but of course he does fucking everything else on top of that. So I don't think that really needed to be said, but whatever. Either way. So we're able to obviously use Phoebe to max out the Max Royale and BP Karen's attack, right, and her crit as well, and able to get the win in. All really needs to be said. She's got enough team bulk on top of the attack debuffs from the Master Royale to take attacks. Not really so much against Caitlyn, because Caitlyn is a special-oriented stage, so you don't really have to deal too much with physical attacks. But if you did, then BP would be taking them quite well, right? So there's that. Either way, yeah. The big thing with Phoebe is maxing crit and attack at her efficiency. It's a very, very effective way to max stats, I guess. Not really to the same extent as like Tierna with Trainer Move NPR, or even like, I don't know, Sonya and Hop, because they both max defenses on top of it, or give a lot of defensive buffs on top of it, but still, definitely not bad, 100%. And obviously the Gauge Refresh from her Trainer Move is extremely useful, because she lacks any other method of gauge, which is still a big problem despite that. Alright, so last we looked at Phoebe as a general offensive support. Now we're going to look at her on top of that being a defense buffer. She's able to buff defense with Shielded, whatever it's called. Shielded 1, I think, on Dire Hit Plus. So she's able to buff ally defense by up to +2, right? Because obviously, steal crit buffs, I guess, but for the most part, only up to +2 crit on the Dire Hit All Plus. She also does have Team Toughen Up 4, so she does have a 50% chance of buffing team defense whenever she's hit by an attacking move, which we do have Dawn as the attack taker in the setup, so that's not exactly going to be too common. But if she ever does get hit, then of course you can buff team defense. But I wanted to look at Phoebe as a way to buff Dawn for her full nuke, as well as her DPS with Tough Cookies. And I guess team gauge management as well, but again, that is really something you're going to notice, is that Phoebe's not great at that. She's not great at helping out team gauge. If they really should have given her some stuff in that great expansion power boost to actually make her more effective in that role. Like, she doesn't even have anything like Catalyst or any form of gauge acceleration, no speed buffs, nothing. It's really not great, and that is definitely her biggest hindrance, is that lack of, right? Hop does suffer to a similar extent, especially because if you run him with other steel types or use him as a steel type striker, the steel typing is overall very slow for the most part, with very few exceptions. So Hop does suffer in that same regard, but at the very least he also has consistent healing with potions, and he does still have gauge management for himself with the free moves next. So Hop, I think, doesn't really share too much in terms of lacklusterness as Phoebe does in terms of her abilities to buff gauge. Like, again, her good points, buffing, maxing crit, and maxing attack extremely well, very good. Yes, very, very nice, but it's just, it doesn't keep up with the modern standards of a few other of the general pool supports, or even free supports, again, like Hop or Sonya, those being the absolute biggest two. Also, my Dawn, I don't think has Critical Strike 2. I'm pretty sure, I think she still has Fast Track 2 on accident, which I guess is a fair thing to bring for Phoebe's horrible gauge, but that was for a Gauntlet solo I was doing, and I never changed her Lucky Skill back to Critical Strike 2, so Dawn would have done a little bit more damage there, but whoops, that's just how it goes. And also the physical moves next, of course, from Phoebe was extremely good for empowering Dawn's Seed Bombs. Of course, Dawn is one of the most effective support damage dealers out there, when on type mostly, but thankfully Phoebe is able to enhance that damage, even further, to a point of potentially being like a good general pool grass striker, right, instead of actually being a support, which honestly I really enjoy, having a supportive character also act as a offensive character. Very, very fun. So, yeah. There was Phoebe with Dawn and Mallow. She also was pretty good at buffing Mallow's offensive stats, so that didn't really matter too much. But yeah, let's move on and finish up with the last battle. Alright, so the final setup is Hoenn maxing Maxi. Yeah, sure. There's not a lot of great Hoenn supports, so getting a full Hoenn setup together is pretty tough. But hey, Phoebe does work quite well alongside those of Anniversary Steven and Maxie if you do want to work with Hoenn Master passives. So, there you go. She's able to max out Maxie's offenses, where you don't have to use his trainer move because it is horrible. It sucks. His trainer move is so garbage. Probably the only reason why Courtney has Team Wise and Team Century entries to kind of mitigate Maxie's trainer move. I'm kind of just now realizing that. That's funny. Anyway, she's able to max out Maxie's... Why the fuck? Dude, whatever. Max physical attack, max crit, physical moves next as well. This setup I'm honestly not really proud of the setup really at all. This relies, if you want smoother clear, on Phoebe getting train move NPR to where she can get gauge back, and of course physical moves next as well. That is one thing I do think you should always pick up with Phoebe, is the trainer move NPR, as well as, well, just trainer move NPR. So you can get that physical moves next on top of the gauge management, because she desperately needs it. And that's in shorter content. I can't even begin to imagine longer battles like the Gauntlet. Oh, brother. But yeah. So, this is... I know that I said, you know, you want to bring her for maxing Maxie's offensive stats so he doesn't have to use his trainer move, but without trainer move NPR, you kind of have to, because your gauge is just so bad. Thankfully, we're able to at least make it to the next sync moves, to whereas Courtney is able to, you know, KO the enemy with her nuke. But for the most part, that's obviously not very good in terms of gauge, especially because Maxie and Courtney are already extremely slow, so the gauge is like a fucking snail, alright? It's like a car without wheels. You're not going anywhere. But, yeah, so, that is probably one of the biggest problems. As stated throughout the... How long has this video been? Probably fucking like 12 minutes at this point. Gauge sucks. So, whatever. But, the one good thing about Phoebe that I do like is that you're able to be very variable with the lucky skill you can run on her, because she does have innate vigilance as a passive skill. You can run adrenaline, as I did in the last battle. You can run healthy healing if you want some more consistent healing outside of first aid 4, and you can of course run things like move gauge refresh 2 or revenge boost if you really want to try and mitigate her horrible gauge issues. So that is a good prospect of her passive lists. So having vigilance as a passive, so that's definitely good. Anyway, that's the Phoebe showcase, power boost and whatnot. I think I'll probably start trying to do showcase of the power boosts more and more. Not around Pokemon Masters Day, but when I think there's appropriate weaknesses, I'll probably put out a video relating to whichever character got their power boost. Sorry that I didn't do it for like Lyra or whoever was before Lyra. I don't even remember, honestly. But I'll try to make it a little bit better to actually be able to do those, because I do think these characters are getting better and better power boosts. Mostly Phoebe with her better offensive buffing, and Lyra with her better offensive buffing, special moves next. But yeah, that's my thoughts about Phoebe and Dusknoir. Do think they could use a little bit more help than what they got, but at the very least, they are definitely now a far more capable option than what they were. So yeah, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think about Phoebe and Dusknoir and their power boosts down in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.